Welcome to the Town of Derry Planning Board meeting for May 21st, 2025. We start our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance, so if you would rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to go over some administrative things first. The emergency exit is at the back of the room where you came in, or in the event of an alarm activation in the front of the room to my right to your left. During an alarm activation, the elevator is not operable, so if you need assistance with mobility, please wait for first responders. The Planning Board voluntarily continues to offer remote participation. If any member of the Planning Board participates remotely, votes shall be by roll call. Members of the public or the board who wish to attend the meeting may do so using a computer or smart device by visiting www.zoom.us and enter the meeting ID 754-663-912. You may also join for audio only by telephone by calling the number 646-558-8656. Enter the same meeting ID, 754-663-912. If you have problems getting connected, please call 603-845-5585. If you are on the telephone, please do a *9 to raise your hand to be recognized, and once recognized, a *6 to unmute yourself. At this point, I will introduce the members and staff who are present tonight. To my far left is our alternate, Mr. Mousy, who I will sit in the absence of Mr. Fishman. Our alternate, Mr. Wood, who I will sit in the absence of Mr. Malaby. Our planning director, Ms. Rhoda.
Good evening.
Town council liaison, Mr. Chase.
Good evening.
Regular member, Mr. Healy.
Good evening.
Our vice chair, oops, I've skipped over, our clerk, Ms. Caravello. Our vice chair, Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening.
The far left is Mr. Preventure, who is the director of the DerryCAM media, providing our wonderful video coverage. Next to him is Mr. LaRue, who is our deputy public works director.
Good evening.
Then we have new members, Mr. Pelletier and Mr. Malvini. Mr. Malvini, which of you is not here?
Derek Minervini.
Malvini's not here, so it's Mr. Pelletier.
Good evening.
Mr. Churchill, who is the town administrator rep,
Good evening.
and Mr. Wood. So I have introduced the alternates who are sitting for the absent members. Our first matter on the agenda is escrow. And I noticed that our escrow folder is empty, so we don't have any escrow to consider tonight. We have approval of minutes for the fourth Gateway Visioning session on April 30th, and the planning board minutes of May 7th, 2025. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any errors or omissions?
You want to take them both at the same time?
If there are no errors or omissions, sure. Hearing none.
Then, Mr. Chair, I move to accept the minutes of the fourth Gateway Visioning, April 30th, 2025, and the Town Planning Board, May 7th, 2025. So move.
It has been moved by Mr. O'Connor,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Healy, to approve both sets of minutes as written. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Mousy.
Yes.
Mr. Pelletier.
Yes.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We have before us correspondence, and under correspondence, we have received a request for reconsideration of a previously approved plan, and we will need to decide what we want to do with that before moving on. Mr. Healy?
Yes. So we have a letter from Michael and Amy Rayum at 604 Colette's Grove Road in Derry, and it is regarding a decision that we made at our last meeting on Colette's Grove. It states, "Dear members of the Planning Board, thank you for taking this time to hear my concerns at the May 7th meeting regarding the proposed subdivision at 601 Colette's Grove Road. I also appreciate the thoughtful questions and attention given by the board during the discussion. I am writing to respectfully request that the board reconsider its decision to approve the two-lot subdivision for Mr. Auger. We believe a more thorough review is warranted for the following reasons. Dissenting votes. 3 board members, Mr. Pelletier, Mr. Fishman, and Mr. Chase, voted against the subdivision. Given this significant opposition, we ask the remaining members to consider visiting the property in person to gain a clearer understanding of the site conditions before finalizing the decision. Incorrect abutter information. At least 3 abutters listed on Mr. Lavelle's plan were inaccurately identified. These errors potentially excluded rightful property owners from the notification process. James Willard sold his property at 34 Colette's Grove Road to Don Facteau. Sam Chakaran sold 401 Colette's Grove Road to Paul Jackson. Dan Doherty of Franklin, New Hampshire is incorrect and should listed as 1014 Colette's Grove Road. These property transfers occurred prior to the certified mailing date of April 23rd. As such, the current owner should have been notified and given the opportunity to provide input. Flooding concerns. Ongoing flooding on the property, including during the week of ending May 10th, further demonstrates the environmental sensitivity of this land. Please see attached photos for reference. Subdividing the lot may exacerbate drainage issues and create additional environmental challenges. Well and septic placement. As noted by Mr. Lavelle, the state wants to see as much separation as we can possibly get. The biggest waiver they will grant for distance between septic and well is 35 feet. If the lot were kept intact, Mr. Auger would not need to request a waiver for septic to well separation, which indicates that subdivision introduces a self-imposed hardship. For these reasons, we respectfully urge the planning board to reconsider its approval and to revisit the site before proceeding further. We believe that a more careful examination will ensure a decision that best serves the community. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. In addition to the letter from those abutters, there is a similar letter received from Kerry Matheson at 607 Colette's Grove Road. And I believe all the members of the board got these in their packets, so I'll turn it back over to the chair.
So before we proceed to figure out what to do, let me read for the board, the new members especially, and the public, Section 10 of the Planning Board's Policies and Procedures, the procedure for reconsideration of a planning board decision. A, the board may reconsider its own decision within the statutory time period for appeal to the Superior Court, which is 30 days from the decision. B, the motion to reconsider must be made by a member who was on the prevailing side of the decision to be reconsidered. C, upon an affirmative vote to reconsider, the board shall determine a date and time certain to reconsider the matter. The board may take up the matter immediately. And D, deliberation on the matter must clearly define why the board felt its prior decision was unclear, unreasonable, or that the board was not in possession of all the facts required to make a determination. And given the deadlines, I think we should consider the parameters of Section 10 and make a decision on whether reconsideration is merited. And if so, we should schedule that for the next available hearing date. And I think Ms. Robita says if we get the notice out tomorrow, we can schedule it for June 4th.
We can.
Because we will need to renotice the butters if we decide to reopen that hearing. I would like to limit tonight's discussion to whether the board members think that there is any element under item D, whether it be unclear, unreasonable, or not having all the facts that would prompt us to vote to undertake the reconsideration. Comments from members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, yeah.
Mr. Churchill?
Yeah, seeing the fact that 3 of the abutters were not notified because, correct? Because the correct information was not there. 5?
We utilize the information that is in the assessor's database at the time of notice. If properties transfer, and it usually takes a month for the deeds to get to us from the registry. So if we are
Okay,
not
yes.
aware of a property transfer that may have occurred the month before, we wouldn't have that information. So we verify every abutter in our assessing database before we send the notices out, and we adjust as
Yeah.
necessary.
Because that was the question that I was going to lead to, was where did they get the information from, if it was from town
Yes.
database? So are you saying that the 3 abutters that were not notified are all new residents of that road?
It's possible. What we do when we receive an application and get the abutter list, we create our own abutter list based on the town assessing data, and we compare it against the list that we receive, and then we amend and change as
Okay.
needed for the lots so that we have the proper notice going out.
Yeah. So whether that's, I mean, the point being is there was 3 abutters that weren't notified, and for me, I would say that we should reconsider because they have every right to chime in. There may be information they have that we don't know or we didn't get, so, and I was one of the people that voted on the prevailing side, so, I personally would want to see a new hearing and those abutters notified.
Okay, any other members of the board have thoughts on this issue?
Mr. Chair, just want to clarify, you said you were holding up 5 fingers.
Get
Yes.
closer to the mic, John, because
Yeah,
you're
I can't
a
hear
little
you,
froggy
John.
tonight.
There were 5 people that were not notified, 5 abutters?
No.
3, 2?
She, the resident says 3,
Oh, based on the that letter.
based on the
that's-
letter. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Any other thoughts?
I guess I just have one. I don't know if it's going to get into too much detail. It's just what new information will we be looking at this future meeting? Because I know for me as a board member, when I look at the packet, if they're not requesting any significant waivers, I don't know what purview we have to really deny the project as a whole. So I don't know what new information we'd be looking at come this date that, I don't know if that's too technical of a question. I mean, I'd be open to, voting to reconsider, to hear that, but I just don't know what we're going to hear on that date.
Yeah, my understanding is that they don't think we did the right thing, given the amount of water on those properties. What was hard for some members of the public to understand is we're kind of a quasi-judicial body, and if an application meets all of the requirements of state law, the zoning ordinance, this subdivision regulations, we really can't say no. We can say yes, but mitigate this, mitigate that. And as I recall, we did say yes, but there were a couple of conditions regarding placement of the building and the kind of gutters and subsurface water in reinfusion and things like that. But I get the impression from the letter is they think there should only have been one house built on that property. My understanding, and I'm going to reprise for folks who are new, when we started hearing on that, there were actually 3 lots of record because the town council had unmerged the single parcel into 3.
Correct.
And what the applicant was asking for was a remerger into 1 and at the same time a subdivision into 2.
Yes.
And so if we had denied that application, the applicant would still have 3 lots of record and could build 3, could pull 3 building permits and build 3 smaller homes. So the planning board's discretion in terms of saying, no, we think it should be 1 lot because of the drainage, I'm not sure what the legal standing would be. We'd have to research that. But I have no problem with giving the opportunity for a rehearing, especially since there were some abutters who weren't notified. But we'll need to let the applicant know that their approval is now pending again if we decide to schedule another public hearing to reconsider the approval. Is that correct?
Absolutely. In the surveyor of record was informed as soon as we received the letters, he received copies as well, and I let him know that there may be an appeal pending.
I mean, that always kind of happens, right? Any approval can be appealed within the 30 days, so.
And we generally will not record until that 30-day appeal period has expired, just for this reason.
Okay. Any other, I understand that for some of the new members, this is probably a little bit fresh territory. I don't think during all of my time on the planning board, we've done one of these before, so two? Not during my time, though.
You may have been off the board at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, somewhat new territory. What is the board's pleasure on this? We need to either decide to accept the petition for rehearing and schedule another hearing, or decide to reject it because we don't think it's warranted, and then we'll move on tonight.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we rehear the case. The reason being that there were 3 abutters that were not notified. And I'll make that motion since I was on the prevailing side of the initial approval. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's, moved by Churchill, seconded by Healy to grant a rehearing and to notice the rehearing for June 4th. We'll need to renotice all the abutters, and we'll need to do that tomorrow, as I understand it.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes, for the reasons that Mr. Cherichello pointed out.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, for the reason that I see some of the notes that are here I've not seen before, so.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes, for the same things that Mr. Cherichello said. I agree.
Mr. Pelletier? Mr. Chiricello?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
And the chair will vote yes, concurring that there was a technical defect with the notice. So we will add this rehearing, public hearing to the agenda for June 4th. Okay, thank you for bearing with us on that. Next on the agenda is other business. We have the vote to accept the amended policies and procedures, which basically just add a landfill as one of the criteria that determines regional impact. It's required by state law. We've had a first reading and a second reading. Is there any reason to further discuss this?
No, I think this is the 3rd or 4th hearing, so. Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the proposed changes to the Planning Board Policy and Procedures, Article 2, Section 7, Applications, to add criterion for developments of regional impact.
Okay, it's been moved by O'Connor, seconded by Chiricello to approve the amendment. We'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mountain?
Yes.
Pelletier? Mr. Chiricello? Yes. Mr. Wood?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The next item under other business is we have a third extension request for parcel ID 08017 37 Scobie Pond Road and 08017-001 41 Ashley Drive.
Okay, thank you. And if the board doesn't mind, I'm just going to combine these two together. So the property is owned by Ashley Development LLC, but is under contract with GFI Partners. All conditions for final approval have been met with the exception of the receipt of the alteration of terrain permit and the establishment of escrow. New Hampshire DES held its final public hearing on the AOT permit in late April, and there was a 30-day appeal period. We were informed today that the permit is ready to be issued. But the applicant will still need time to establish escrow, so is asking for additional time. Haley Pelizzola is online representing GFI in case there are any questions.
Now, if I understand it, the general court in its wisdom instructed the DOT to get a move on with those approvals and do them within, what, 60 days?
They haven't
Yeah,
done
So I guess we're not seeing that yet.
we're not
Okay.
yet.
it. Mr.
What's the board's pleasure on this one?
Mr. Chair, let me make a comment first, because I'm going to abstain from this, because I'm a direct abutter to these properties. And the thing is, that I'm also on the commission for the Southern New Hampshire Commission Planning, and all the other planning people that are there with me, we also discuss issues, and DES is way, way behind. And they're all complaining the fact that it's hard to get driveway approvals or AOTs, so I would agree to go along with this one here.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion on this? Mr. Chiricello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will make a motion that we extend a third request for PID 081737 Scoby Pond Road and PID 0817001 41 Ashley Drive. I know it's not typical that we do more than two, but it sounds like because the state's moving very slowly, I think it's only fair to give this third extension.
And can I mention just
There's
something else?
usually a motion maker that indicates the new,
Is it in the packet?
It would be December
yeah, it's right here.
3rd, 2025.
Okay, let's see.
And Mr. Chair, before he reads it, just to say that to show the commitment of this
Just a second.
builder is the fact that I think he's put in over $300,000 in escrow already.
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't because of the applicant, it's more the state. But I'll make the motion to approve a 6-month extension, which is the third extension of a conditional site plan approval granted to Ashley Drive LLC, PID 08017-001, 37 Scoby Pond Road. The new expiration date will be December 3rd, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved by Chiricello, seconded by Healy to grant a 6-month extension. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor.
Abstain, as what I said.
Mr. Mauzy.
Yes.
Mr. Pelletier.
Yes.
Mr. Chiricello.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Okay, and to confirm that that is actually also for 41 Ashley Drive as well? Was it a
It
combined
didn't
motion?
read in the motion, but,
Oh, you
There
were
was 2 pages, that's why.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
I'll
I
make
kinda-
the,
friendly amendment?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let me find the next item. Next item is a review of the development of regional impact for the Gateway Commerce Park site plan review conducted in Londonderry.
So, Mr. Chair, we have not yet received notice of public hearing from Londonderry yet, and given the length of our agenda tonight, this might require a little bit more discussion by the board. Do we want to move this to June 4th or discuss it this evening?
If we don't have all of the information in front of us, we probably should push it off, especially if they haven't scheduled their public hearing yet.
We do have the plan sets were made available to all the members in
Yeah.
their packets, but if you want, I guess my thought is if you want more time to discuss it a little bit more thoroughly and what the impacts
How many
might be to
people would like
Derry.
a little bit more time to look at that plan set?
I would say the same thing here.
Okay,
All right, so
Because-
without objection, we'll schedule it for the next available.
okay,
The
Oh,
planning
meeting.
board could always change it again. with
Thank
the
you.
meeting.
So next, we have planning director and chairman updates.
okay. So, would like to remind the board members that you have a training presented by New Hampshire Municipal Association tomorrow evening in this room, beginning at 6:30. We won't have a recording clerk, so if you could please sign in on the clipboard as you come in so that we know who was here. That will also count towards your training, your annual training numbers for the year. I did want to for the board members who are only using digital copies or who have a printed copy of the zoning ordinance, in the matrix in the back, we were doing some reviewing of that and spotted a typo, which has been corrected online and everywhere else. But the body works is actually only permitted in office medical business, not in OBD, as it had been indicated in the matrix, so that has been fixed. just to let you know that for the next meeting, I guess it was going to be a lighter agenda, but not now. So you'll have the regional impact discussion, 601 Colette's Grove Road rehearing, and then, which I want to remind the board that would be, that's a do-over, so you start from scratch. And then we will also have a concept discussion in the West Running Brook District for Westbrook.
And I'll also remind folks that the training tomorrow is a joint meeting with the ZBA.
It is.
And the agenda is to receive the training. It is noticed as a public meeting because we may have a quorum of individuals. But the only subject matter to be discussed is their training,
Correct.
not other town business. So
Okay, and then if I also can add, also on June 4th is the presentation of the Gateway District Visioning. So we'll have that presentation for you in our first workshop. So,
and then as
Ready.
the chairman update, if for any reason any member of the board would like to schedule a site walk prior to the rehearing on the Colette's Grove plan, now would be a time to do that, if anyone was so inclined.
Are you looking for a motion to
I-
do that?
I'm just asking if anyone thinks it would be a good idea, now would be the time to schedule that site walk.
can you do that outside of a public hearing?
I think so.
I don't think so.
I mean, we're basically just scheduling a meeting.
I'm not
Well, looks like no one wants to do the site walk anyway, so
Okay, that's good.
We can do it individually if we wanted to, correct?
Yeah,
you could,
I've already been here, so.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was planning on driving in that area
Okay.
and seeing it. So
Very
I
good.
think, yeah, it seems like we're going to do it individual.
Now, just a quick question on that, real quick. Those are private roads,
They are private roads.
and it's not a designated emergency lane?
I think Lane 8 was
The road that's on?
is not a designated
It's not
emergency lane. No,
designated,
it's a
okay.
private lane.
Just want to make sure.
I think Lane 6 is the.
Okay.
All right, so that's
That
it for me, and we move now into public hearing for Dreamcatcher Homes LLC, the Edward C. Cooper Revocable Trust of 1993, parcel ID 06086, 6 Eastview Drive, to review an amended subdivision for the removal of a pedestrian easement located on parcel ID 06086-01912 Jewel Lane, and this public hearing is continued from May 7th. So we probably, the first thing we want to do is reopen the public hearing
So moved.
that was continued. So
Second.
moved by Churchill,
Second.
seconded by Healy to reopen a public hearing that was continued on May 7th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The public hearing is open. For those who weren't here, the reason we continued is that there was a fair amount of confusion around access to the town forest parcel that was the benefit of the pedestrian easement. We had to do some legal research around the status of an access that was off of Olson Road, is that right?
Correct.
Hmm?
Yes.
Yeah, and apparently we thought it had been discontinued by town meeting in 1922. Apparently, the minutes of that meeting said it was closed, which is actually not legal term, so it's not really clear what that meant. And then later in, the 80s, there was another plat recorded that showed that the road was extinguished.
Yes, that is correct. Yep. In
But that
1985, yeah.
plat was not before us on May 7th. We had an older one that still showed the road. And there's a state law that says planning boards can't create nonconformities by creating landlocked lots. So we were concerned that if we removed the Jewel easement and that the Olson Road easement wasn't still viable, that we would be landlocking the lot. Turns out that's actually not the case, because I learned something at one of these sessions I went to. Steve Buckley, who's the legal counsel for NHMA, pointed out that even though the legislative body, town meeting or whatever, may discontinue a road, if that's the only access to the parcel, unless the owner of the parcel explicitly quits claim to any interest, they have an implied easement for continued use over the previously discontinued road. That will probably come as a surprise to the abutters who thought that was not the case. And our own town attorney, Brenda Keith, verified that, that is based on a law that went into effect before the 1922 closure or discontinuation. So the sum of that is we should keep that implied consent, implied easement over the former Olson Road extension until the town and the Conservation Commission make other arrangements. But that frees us to choose to release the Jewel property easement without incurring any legal harm.
Correct.
Does that make sense to folks? That's my sort of layman's summary of it.
Mhm.
You have anything to add, Ms. Robideau?
No, that was
We,
very thorough.
Can we update him on as far as what the town council did last night? Because they made a resolution.
That on May 6th, the town council resolved that,
That's what he-
yes, that they had not, they confirmed that they had never accepted an easement from Jewel.
And also from that, there, wasn't it that the Conservation Commission has to go back and they were working with the butters to see if they can come in from a different avenue, and that we should not dissolve this pedestrian portion at this point in time?
Well,
That's how I read it.
What I would just remind the board is that the matter before us is related to Jewel. And the board's question was, if we extinguish the easement from Jewel, will we landlock the town forest? The answer per our town attorney is no. The planning board has no purview over the access to the conservation lands. That's something for Conservation Commission and the town council to work out. Our question was, are we going to landlock the parcel if we get rid of the Jewel pedestrian easement? And the answer was no. So,
We had official word from the neighbors, because on that street that was claimed,
but we don't have
1922,
purview over that.
but the markers are in the middle of the road. So
the-
it shows that each half of the road goes to a different location, to each one
So
of
my
them.
understanding, John, is they do indeed own
They do.
that land, and there is no longer a public highway over that land. However, there is a legal doctrine conferred by two fairly knowledgeable attorneys that unless the town said, yeah, we don't want to have even an implied easement to use that property, the town has an implied easement for all reasonable access to that property, and it would not only include employees of the town, but the public. So there is now still an implied public easement, even though it's not a public highway.
So could they, those neighbors, could they put a sign up there, posted, saying, no trespassing?
I'm not going to
And I
answer
know I'm
those kind
being-
of questions, John.
I was just going off that resolution that they wrote in May 6th, so they put together.
Okay, so any other questions about the status of the legal interpretation that we got from our counsel?
I guess my only question is the last sentence of the letter that says, I advise that the town should not relinquish the existing easement until the Conservation Commission has secured the other access you're seeking from another abutter. I guess
She's referring to the Olson Road
She's
Yeah,
easement.
so,
referring to Olson
yes.
Road.
Ms. Robinow and I discussed that at some length,
Yeah.
and it's not as clear as one would like, but given the way Attorney Keith phrased the wording elsewhere in the letter, she referred to the Jewel as a proposed easement and the Olson as an existing easement. And so I presume that her language is consistent throughout the letter, and the last sentence therefore applies to the Olson implied easement.
Yeah, just because on my own independent reading of this, To me, it read as she was referring to Jewel Lane on that last sentence. That's why I think the letter is a little confusing. But okay, so she's referring to the Olson Road.
She is, yeah.
Yeah, it really should be stated in those recorded minutes that that's what that number 8 bullet point pertains to. You know, I mean, my major concern was that we would landlock that piece and the public wouldn't have no access. But if you're saying that we've got a legal opinion that that says that we can still, people can still use, the public can still use the Olson Road access point, that's fine with me. But I would like it to be a little bit more clear in that bullet point, just specifically on 8, because it can be confused, it can be read as a little bit confusing.
Well, my staff report wasn't read for the record, so it won't be reflected in the minutes. So that number 8 won't be reflected in the minutes.
Yeah, if we want to get a follow-up from Attorney Keith and ask her to use
Just be a little
more
bit more
explicit
specific.
language rather than, proposed and existing, to use Olson and Jewel in a subsequent letter, that would,
Okay.
wrap it up for you?
Yeah.
But my understanding is that it was the intent.
Yeah, based on the paragraph above, I would agree with that statement.
So we're now back at the point where we have answered that legal quandary, then we can move forward. Since we have reopened the public hearing, is there anyone in the audience or at home, remote, who has questions or would like to address this continuation of that hearing?
Good evening, board members. Tom Carden, 2 Cunningham Drive. I still had a question about the entrance. Have any of you driven over by there, Olson? And is it where those 2 poles are in the ground where there would be the entrance to that? And that goes down to a culvert, if I recall. It looks like there's water coming down, and I think if that's going to be used as an entrance, that there's going to have to be a lot of work done there, because I wanted to walk down there, but I just wasn't going to because of how it looked, so.
Well, I hear that there's other discussions going on that are really, at this point, none of the planning board's business, about some alternate form of access. The planning board, in order to release the easement over Jewel, only requires that the lot not become landlocked, not that the access that exists is ideal or even highly usable. It was more of a legalistic issue. So whether the Conservation Commission and the Town Council will, at some point, make some other arrangement for a better access to the town forest, that's really not on the table tonight and not within our jurisdiction.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just, would like to, I don't want to see that there isn't any access to that land for people to go hiking on. And additionally, the 26.5 Ballard is also owned by the developer over there. It's kind of an odd piece of land, kind of goes in straight and comes into a circle, and that also abuts the town forest, so.
Well, you may feel empowered to speculate about that, but we're not going to.
Okay.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, can we have a motion to close the public hearing? Moved by Chiricello,
Second?
seconded by Healy, to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. I believe we have some motion makers in the staff report. First, the findings of fact.
Yeah. The proposed easement is on the recorded plat. It can only be removed by an amended subdivision approval, and the town of Derry did not accept the easement through action of the Conservation Commission or Town Council when the original subdivision was approved. And on May 6, 2025, Town Council confirmed the easement was not conveyed to the town.
You might actually add to that we determined through legal opinions that releasing the Jewel easement will not landlock the property.
Okay, and we'll add that to the finding of facts. And I move to agree with the noted findings.
Second.
Moved by Healy, seconded by Chercello to make findings of fact. Poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Pelletier?
Yes.
Mr. Chercello?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve pursuant to, after review and deliberation of the amended subdivision application for PID 06086, Dreamcatcher Homes LLC, owner Edward Cooper, removing a 25-foot proposed pedestrian easement encumbering 12 Jewel Lane, map 6, lot 86-19. The board finds the applicant has satisfied the applicable requirements of the Land Development Control Regulations. Therefore, the motion is to approve pursuant to RSA 676:4, Roman numeral 3, expedited review with the following conditions. Subject to owner's signature, obtain written approval from the planning director designee that the GIS submission is received and operable. Conditions precedent shall be met within 6 months. Submission of the appropriate recording fees payable to the Rockingham County Register of Deeds. This includes the $25 L-chip fee, recording fees for the Mylar, and the notice of decision.
Second.
Moved by Healy, seconded by O'Connor to grant conditional approval. Is there any discussion? Poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Mr. Pelletier?
Yes.
Mr. Chercello?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Great. Thank you, guys. All right. If I can find my agenda again. All right, the next item on the agenda is parcel ID 30026-001, 30037, and 30038, 5 Abbott Court, 3 Central Court, and 1 Central Court, Town of Derry and Lansing Melbourne Group, represented by T.F. Moran. Acceptance and review of a mixed-use development of 117 residential units, 313 space parking garage with surface parking and site improvements. And I will just comment for the board and the public, it is a mixed use, but it is also a private-public partnership. The garage is being owned and developed by the town of Derry, and as such, we may grant them some courtesy. We give them our comments and suggestions, but we cannot make binding conditions upon that part of the plan. However, the LMG is a private developer, and we expect them to follow all of our town regulations.
Okay. So it has been a long-term goal of the town of Derry to redevelop 3 lots owned by the town in the area of Abbott Court. The properties contain the former Diffio oil and Palmer gas sites. The proposed project meets several goals and objectives of the master plan, specifically Objective 1.1, 4.1, and 4.6. In 2021, the town entered into a memorandum of understanding with LMG to work collaboratively toward a vision for Abbott Court. In December of '23, the town and LMG applied to the ZBA for variances and were granted those. Those were for density, parking, and dimensional requirements. A 6th variance was granted in 2024 to allow residential use on the first floor. The proposal before the board consists of a 5-story building on the site of the existing parking lot with up to 117 residential units and 315 parking spaces for use by the residents and the general public. The apartment building plan as of this date consists of 4 2-bedroom units, 82 1-bedroom, and 30 studios. 1 space per unit will be leased from the town for use by the residents in the apartment building. An additional 8 surface public parking spaces are proposed, and the project is proposed across 3 lots, which will need to be merged as a condition of approval. All of the lots are in the TBOD. The parking garage is intended to open during 4th quarter of '26, with the residential components slated for Q3 of '27. The town will own the parking garage and the land underneath it, and the remainder of the project is owned by LMG. Following construction, a condominium plan will be created and submitted to the planning board for approval to establish appropriate ownership. As noted, with regard to parking, 315 spaces are provided in the garage, which will be owned by the town of Derry. 8 surface-level public parking spaces will be provided. Electric vehicle charging stations will not be installed in those 8 spaces at this time, but the project did contemplate those for future. Access to the development is primarily from Sawyer Court and Merchants Row, entering at separate levels within the structure, with an additional one-way access to the site from Abbott Court, which will provide access to the 8 surface-level parking spaces. Pedestrian access to Merchants Row in the downtown area, as well as the rail trail, will be available from the parking structure. The property is served by municipal water and sewer, and the proposed heat source will be electric. There have been extensive discussions between the project team and staff with regard to the infrastructure improvements and the stormwater management of the site. And the applicant is coordinating with Eversource on the layout of electrical service, including the location of new poles, and the utility plan will be updated accordingly. Sewer exists in Sawyer Court currently, and the infrastructure will be updated to accommodate the project. Stormwater will be handled underground with closed drainage, and there are no off-site impacts proposed. Traffic is a larger item for this project. There's an extensive traffic report submitted with the application. Merchants Row is an existing narrow two-way road. It's 22 feet wide that dead ends at the rail trail. Parking for users of the rail trail and the local business is accommodated right now in 19 parking spaces. And although the entrance, the garage entrance at Merchants Row is one-way in, the drive aisle for Merchants Row will remain two-way to accommodate the parking spaces. A short turnaround has been created, removing 3 parking spaces at the end of Merchants Row to create a form of an alley dock, which will provide space for delivery trucks to turn around, as well as the occasional motorist who enters and drives past the parking spaces and doesn't want to enter the garage. The first existing space in Merchants Row is under consideration for removal and striping to create a loading zone. This would also provide an area for ambulances if required to service the businesses on Merchants Row. A recommendation from Highway Safety and approval by Town Council is required to remove or add public parking spaces. And the applicant will describe the proposed landscape and buffering plan when they describe the plan. So comments and concerns from staff. Highway Safety reviewed the plan on May 15th. They had no recommendations nor concerns. The applicant is coordinating with New Hampshire DES Oil Remediation and Compliance Bureau with regard to groundwater monitoring. They're also coordinating with Whitestone and New Hampshire DES for the handling of on-site soils, and a soils management plan will be prepared prior to construction. Fire and code TRC comments are all addressed. DPW has some remaining comments which are outlined in a memo prepared by Mark LaRue. There are 4 waivers. One is related to parking stall length in the parking garage. The other is related to a residential buffer on the south side of the project, and then the remainder are landscape. DES sewer connection permit is required. I believe the project is too small for an AOT. So recommendations or items for consideration. If the board could discuss the potential new traffic flow patterns in the downtown area and make recommendations for future improvements at Merchants Row and West Broadway. Consider, maybe forwarding to Town Council the elimination of several parking spaces on Merchants Row once the garage is open, restiping the parking with maybe fewer spaces to serve the public and existing businesses. If the board could consider recommending 1 or 2 parking spaces to be removed in front of 6 West Broadway to better facilitate sight lines as one exits Merchant Row. That will also provide an opportunity to create a slip right into Merchants. Should the board remove 1 to 3 spaces at Merchants Row to create a larger delivery area, that would be an item for consideration. And should parking along Merchants Row be parallel rather than drive-in, that may be something you want to consider or not, it would result in a lot less spaces being available to businesses. Merchants Row, you should consider widening the mouth there. And following construction of the parking garage and the residential units, the town should consider developing a plan for special event parking in the downtown to handle the larger traffic events, like the Boston Marathon Qualifier, Derry After Dark, Derry Fest, and things like that. Would also recommend that the board consider investing in a downtown traffic flow study to better inform decisions about the removal and addition of parking spaces and special event traffic flow once the garage is completed. And this could be facilitated through the planning department, but we would of course need to discuss funding sources. A proposed motion is attached to the staff report and lists conditions precedent, those required before the board can sign the plan, and those subsequent, which would be handled before the issuance of a occupancy permit. And I just do want to note that rights to the garage parking spaces is a town council matter, so we don't get into who gets a space, who doesn't get a space. We do have an email from an abutter at 3 Sawyer that was included in your packets.
So, Ms. Robideau,
Yep.
I believe I read in the VHB report that it's their opinion that AOT is required?
I would ask Mr. Burns to confirm that, but our understanding all along was that the project was under the 100,000 threshold at this time.
Okay.
So
I mean, and this is actually a fairly large number of comments in the VHB report, which
There
was
are.
at, what, Tuesday?
we did,
Has the applicant seen it?
yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, okay, so Mr. Burns and Mr. Duval are here from TF Moran representing LMG. We also have representatives from LMG in the room. And I believe Beverly is here and Mr. Karen is here. If their town has any question, if you have any questions for the town.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Peter Floats. I'm the chairman of LMG, the founder. I've been involved with the project from the beginning. I will likely have the least constructive or informative things to say, but the team is here. Tom will handle working through a presentation here. Our architect is also here, Arden Freeman. Our internal project leadership is here also, so we're available for questions after this is started and ended.
Is it possible to pull up the color up? Yes, thank you. Just while the plan's being pulled up, good evening. For the record, my name is Tom Burns. I'm a senior project manager at TF Moran. I want to thank Ms. Robideau for going through the background of the site. And I'm just going to have a site plan pulled up just for reference. For those on the board and those in the public, understanding this is the properties that we're looking at and that we're discussing this evening are location of the Abbott Court Municipal Parking Lot, as well as the 2 adjacent lots to it that are the former homes of DeFeo Oil and the Palmer Gas site. The plan is on the screen now in front of you. So this is a project that over the last 4 years or so, we've gone through a number of iterations as part of the design team and working with the town to develop this mixed-use development that would include residential housing that was needed in the downtown area, as well as a public parking structure. And some of the original iterations that you may or may not have seen over the years included a larger footprint, different layout, different access points to it. They had looked at a number of potentials for acquiring additional land around these properties to try to fit it. And ultimately, working within the site geometry and the topography of the site and accessibility, the package has been developed into what you have in front of you. This is a wrap structure where you have 5 stories of residential units that wrap around the perimeter of the parking garage, as you'll see on the plan. As Ms. Robideau noted, the site is located with access off of Merchants Row. We have site access coming in off of Abbott Court, both to the north, and then to the south we have the primary access to the site, which is going to be from Central Street onto Sawyer Court into the primary drive up into the first level of the garage. So as I said, this is a 5-story structure, 5 stories of residential units around the perimeter, up to 117 units proposed. And those would wrap around the parking structure and bound it on 3 sides. And that structure would have as many as 315 spaces inside the garage, with 2 levels of access into the garage. Again, the first floor or level 1 access would be from the entrance that's shown along the south side, that driveway that would come up to the site, that would enter the garage there. That would be a 2-way entrance in and out of the garage. Additionally, because of the size of the structure, we typically have 2 access points to it. Taking in mind Merchants Row and the challenges with turning movements out onto West Broadway, we're proposing this be an entrance only into the garage. We don't anticipate that this is going to be the primary entrance to the garage, but it will allow for vehicle entrance only, but there will be no exiting out through this back onto Merchants Row. It will be signed accordingly. Additionally, we have a short extension of a fire lane that's adjacent to the rail trail on that upper level, and that was working with the Derry Fire Department to provide them a suitable access point that allows them to then be able to get in and out along Merchants Row and approach the building for emergency purposes. We're proposing a pedestrian rail trail from that 3rd level of the structure out at that elevation. So the ground there would be filled to the elevation roughly up to the rail trail, so we would have accurate access there. Where the cursor is located, you can see there'd be a stairwell that would come down from the rail trail area down to that driveway on the south side of the building. It will allow pedestrian connectivity down to the lowest level. And along Sawyer Court is really where our primary entrance is going to be. That's where the lobby space for the residential, the main access, it's lobby amenity space there coming into the building. The intent is to drive, as much of the vehicular and pedestrian traffic among residents in that building through that entrance. And we've included working with the fire department, we included a loading area along that lower entrance that would allow for fire truck and ambulance loading and access as well. In addition to the parking that's within the garage, we're proposing 8 surface spaces that are shown along the northwest side of the property where the cursor is there. Those would be placed there to allow for provisions for future EV parking, because it's the preference of the town not to include EV charging stations within the structure itself. So we can accommodate them out there and including an accessible space for EV parking there as well. The site, as noted, the site will be served by municipal sewer, which will come in from the existing main that's on Sawyer Court. So there'll be a stub roughly to the middle of the building. They'll include a oil water separator or a grease trap to address the floor drains within the garage. The water would be extended from the municipal connection that is on Central Street, would come up Central Street on the south side and come around to the north and tie in on Sawyer Court where there's an existing stub there, and then would extend up to our building as well. So we're providing municipal water from those locations. As noted, heat will be through electric on the site, so there's no gas proposed to the building. The electric service to the building, we're working with Eversource and they're determining which pole, either on Sawyer Court or Central, that they want to bring the power to the building from. So we'll continue to coordinate with them as to where they want their connection to be for that. Stormwater management for the site will be located, as Liz noted, it's a closed drainage system that's proposed on the site. We'll have a series of 3 stormwater management systems. There'll be a system, can we go to the site plan package? Okay. So there's 3 systems located on the site. The first one will be located along the upper level. If you can just go to the grading and drainage plan. Just while he's getting to that, just to show. There'll be a stormwater management system that will be located on the upper level or on the 3rd level that will be in a fill area that is basically the area along the existing retaining wall of the parking lot. We're proposing to fill that, again, to bring the grade at the third level up to be consistent with the rail trail grade. That allows us,
Sheet C7, Owen.
yeah,
Ah,
I
okay.
got it now.
Tom's driving now.
All right. Perfect. So this will be, in this location where the cursor is, that will be one stormwater management system. That will allow us to pick up the top level of the parking structure as well as site runoff from this area. Per the town of Derry's regulations, these are closed pipe networks. These are not like a storm tech or a chamber type system. So these will be 48-inch diameter pipes that will be used for volume storage of accumulated runoff. The second system is located here in the north side parking area, the northwest parking area. Again, under the pavement, it's a similar system, 48-inch diameter pipes, sized for volume. And the third system will be located under the primary entrance drive along the south side, the southeast area over here. All of those systems have been designed primarily for storage. One of the reasons why is just based on existing soil conditions and depth of groundwater that's observed in the monitoring wells on the site. We're not proposing infiltration or recharge of the stormwater, so it'll just be attenuation of the flows to make sure that we have no impacts to any offsite interests on the site. There is a retaining wall that is proposed along the south side, the southerly property boundary over in here, that will allow us to again, access with the grade through that driveway up into the site. Looking quickly, and I guess just quickly looking, I know there was a question of the AOT permits. We did receive that comment this week. When we've mapped the area, we are slightly under the 100,000 square foot threshold. One of the changes that we've had recently is just the building size has gotten a little bit smaller, so the areas of impact are getting smaller. So our intent is we will be under the alteration of terrain threshold. Site lighting is proposed via a series of building-mounted wall packs. These will all be dark sky compliant fixtures, downcast lighting, so that we keep the lighting on the site so we don't have light creep onto abutting properties. And site landscaping is proposed primarily around the building footprint. It's a mixture of deciduous and evergreen trees and shrubs, primarily shrubs given the tightness of the site around here. As Liz noted, we have a couple of landscape waivers as well that are proposed based off of the layout of this. Is the building and pavement circulation around the site really kind of take up the bulk of the property. If you want, I can read the waivers in now, or if you want to wait till, or if you need me to read those in, I'm happy to do so.
If you want to give us a summary of what you're going to ask for, but we will need to actually read them and make motions on them individually, so.
Yeah. So a couple of the, the landscape is noted. So per the land development regulations, there's a minimum of one deciduous or ornamental tree with a minimum caliper of 2.5 inches for every 30 feet of building perimeter on the site. Based off of that requirement and based off of what's being proposed on the site, we would need 31 trees around the perimeter of the building. And just given, again, the scope of the project and the size of it, we weren't able to accommodate that many trees around it. So we're proposing 5 trees with a waiver for the difference. And then the other requirement is that at least 25% of the trees and shrubs that are required be planted within raised landscaped islands situated in the parking areas. And as the bulk of the parking is within the structure itself, we don't have landscaped areas inside the building itself, so we're seeking a waiver for that. The other waivers, just briefly, there's a waiver for the required buffer or setback to a residential property, to an abutting residential property that is also a multifamily development. So we're seeking a waiver for that as well. And I'm happy to answer any site questions, or if you'd like to wait till after We have Mr. Duval from our office, our traffic engineer is here as well, and he can go over kind of the traffic proposed for the site, circulation, and go through that as well, and then I'm certainly available to answer questions as well after that.
I do have one question on the landscaping. Particularly, I think it's sheet C10. So a number of members of a number of different groups that have met in the civic arena over time, including the Derry Downtown Committee, Gordon Graham and myself have previously testified that one of the goals was to have some space.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Before we can do questions or anything like that, we have to accept jurisdiction.
Yep. Okay, let's, somebody have that motion in front of them?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the revised as submitted on May 13th, 2025 for the project. The site plan set did not change. So I move to accept the jurisdiction of the mixed-use site plan before the board for the town of Derry and lands in Melbourne, Group PID 30026-001, 5 Abbott Court, PID 30037, 3 Central Court, and PID 30038, 1 Central Court. So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to both accept revised plans and to accept jurisdiction is moved by O'Connor, seconded by Chair Cello. I'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Bowsy?
Yes.
Mr. Pelletier?
Yes.
Mr. Churchello?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And determination of regional impact?
Mr. Chair, pursuant to RSA 36:56, the board finds the proposal as presented at this time meets the definition of a development of regional impact.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Healy. And we'll start with Mr. Chase, who usually gets us going on this.
No. Although this is a fairly sizable development for the town of Derry, it does not meet the definition of a regional impact.
Mr. Healy?
No, for the same reasons.
Mr. O'Connor?
I'll concur with my fellow board members.
Mr. Mousy?
No.
Mr. Pelletier?
No.
Mr. Churchello?
No, for the same reasons stated.
Mr. Wood?
No.
And I would say no for the same reasons as Mr. Chase has indicated.
Mr. Chairman, I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
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 Public hearing is open. So I did want to start with my question about landscaping. One of the community goals of longstanding was to be able to facilitate some sort of public space along the rail trail immediately behind Merchants Row for maybe a farmer's market, maybe some pop-up art shows, maybe some pop-up musicians. And while the budget does not include the possibility of creating any structures, we talked about having some open space at that level. And I'm glad to see that the fire lane has actually shrunk a little bit to leave some more green space. But I know, unfortunately, there's trees there. And so this is kind of weird coming from the planning board guy, but I'm going to ask that you maybe not put trees in the areas where we might want to put some pop-up, little tents for some sort of public events, if that is amenable to anyone.
Mr. Chairman, I'm the least of the landscape experts, but I will tell you that the way that the plan is working out, I think both our goals are being met. The fire lane's been shortened a little bit from a previous version you may have seen, and on this plan you see an area that says snow storage. Because that is over these large drainage structures that Tom has designed in there, we can't put very many trees there anyway, and that's next to the existing rail trail, so it's working out very well that we could have a very large public gathering area up there that's flat and able to be available for things like setting up tents. I think we even talked about being able to pull food trucks in there.
Yeah, I
and the
was
like,
just
so it's
saying maybe you should just
pretty
get rid of
cool.
all the shrubs and trees in that little section, just so that,
Just make it a lawn.
the idea was that you could put some, pop-up tents up against the building, so people had free access along the rail trail to
Right.
congregate.
At your pleasure, Mr. Chairman, we'll be happy to hear it.
Unless anyone
What would-
has objection to.
What would
to that?
Debbie Nutter say?
Huh?
What would Debbie Nutter say?
Well, Debbie's not here. And it's all about accommodating multiple needs. So that is my suggestion to accommodate another long-standing community goal in a very cost-effective way. I did note that the list of comments in the VHB report were somewhat extensive, and maybe some of them have already been resolved. So at some point, before we move for approval, perhaps you could kind of go down those comments and indicate which ones are outstanding and which ones you've already taken care of. Other than that, that's all I have. So at this point, do we have any members of the public, either in the audience or?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we do have our architect here if you're interested in any specifics on the elevations, or we can just be available for questions. And also, Mr. Duval loves to talk about traffic, if that's something you'd like to hear about this evening.
Yeah, I noticed there was also some extensive commentary about traffic.
Happy to waive if you want to.
Let's have some commentary from the public, and then we can go into the engineering
Okay.
details. Anyone from the public like to make comments? Please come forward. Okay, come forward. If you gentlemen would just sort of sit down for a second. You can also stand right at that stand mic so that it's good to get questions answered in real time as opposed to try to make a long list. So if the engineer would stand at that mic, and then whoever has questions, Mr. Lanham, come on down and ask your questions.
Hi, my name is Tom Lannon. My brother Steve is also here. We own 14 West Broadway, the plant shop. It's at the top of Central Street on the right. We love the project, absolutely love the project. We think it's going to be great for the town, so we don't oppose the project. Currently at the plant shop, we have 2 entrances, exits, in or out, however you want to look at it. The uppermost one, which is Steve, my brother, measured it earlier. You have 42 feet from the crosswalk to the exit entrance, however you might want to, whichever you want to call. Currently, after 2 vehicles, the entrance becomes that entrance/exit becomes partially blocked, allowing us only one way in and one way out of the project. I'm sure there's a lot of ways to work around this. It's not a big deal. But we love the project. We want to see it move forward, but we would like more consideration. I know the traffic, I read the traffic study, and it made no considerations for our property on Central Street. And I think there's a lot of vehicles going to be coming and going over the time. I looked at the study, and I was a little surprised that there was a few vehicles as they were sending up that road, but it's busy enough now, and however many additional vehicles come up and go from there will really back that project up. And I don't know if people would even stop there. It's something when somebody drives by there, they see it, they have this flash thought that they want a certain plant, and then they stop in and they go. It's very much impulsive buying. I don't say that in a negative way, but it's a consideration, and I think it would really hinder the shop and the business that it currently has. So again, we're totally for the project. We don't want to sound negative, but we just think there probably should be some sort of a consideration for the entrance and exit of the project. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
If the applicant's engineer would like to address that, I see you're writing furiously.
I'm Bob Duval from TF Moran. And good evening, Tom. I'm understanding your concern to be that there will be additional traffic from this project that goes up Central, and that that will add to congestion already at that intersection. That's your point, right?
So again, I've said it 3 times, I think, we're for the project. We'd just like to see some considerations made so it won't cause any harm to the retail property as we use it today.
So, now, of course, the site entrance is off of Sawyer Court. It's not directly on Central Street, but people would leave Sawyer Court, since that's the only way out of the project. Those heading south wouldn't be a problem. Those heading north would amount to a total of 43 trips, 43 additional trips leaving the site. And these are public roads, so it's difficult. It's just probably impractical to reroute the traffic or tell people they can't turn right on Central Street to get, to West Broadway if they so choose. There will be some additional delay there at that intersection. We did analyze the delay in the queues, and the delay adds about 40 seconds to the average left turn movement there. And the additional queue from that is 3 additional cars. The existing queuing is about 2, and it would go to about 3. So it will add some delay, it will add some additional traffic to that intersection. And frankly, if it was our site driveway and we had some control over whether people turn right or left, we would do it. But, from a traffic perspective, it's not an undue burden on that intersection. There will be some minor additional queuing and delay, but I don't think it will really change the ability of anybody who wants to get into your site.
I hear what he's saying, I appreciate it, but I think everybody on the board probably ought to go out in the field and take a look at the situation as it is today. My brother Steve's daughters runs the business there. She works hard to make a living. I think she's done a great upgrade to the town of Derry. It wasn't such a pretty building when we bought it, and we like to maintain it as we do today, but we need customers coming and going. And I think if everybody was to take a look at it, they could all draw their own opinions of how tight the property is and what additional traffic would do to the property.
So I understand what you're saying, Mr. Lannon. Do you have anything in mind in terms of what concrete form a consideration would take?
If nothing else, I think you need some sort of a slip lane to go east. It would certainly simplify that intersection a lot. How? I'm not an engineer. I only try to build what they give me. But I think there needs to be some sort of a consideration for it. If you add just a few more cars to what's already there, you'll eliminate one entrance to the retail shop as it is today, and that's probably going to send a significant amount of the people away from the project. Again, we want the project. We just want some consideration for whatever may need to be done to again make this project happen, but also not potentially highly probably knock the plant shop out of business, and that's our concern.
Mr. Connor, do you have a comment?
I just a comment to add what you're saying, because I do go down that way quite a bit. And the purpose going now to exit 4A is supposed to alleviate a lot of the traffic that you're going to be seeing. And by the time we get the parking garage up and the rest of the building up also, is about the time that 4A will be almost finished too. So in theory, the reduction of traffic would be a lot greater, because you're right, coming up that hill next to the plant store, it can be a little.
I actually considered that, and I thought quite a bit about it, but a lot of the people coming out of there very well may be heading to 4A, so they're probably going to be going in a northerly direction, and the northerly direction would be, as a many-year resident of Derry, I won't get into my age, but I would come out, I'd go up Central Street, I'd go to West Broadway, and I'd either take a left right there and take a quick right onto Maple Street to get over there, or I'd take a right. But either way, I would probably go up to Central Street. The traffic study, when I looked at it, doesn't show that's the flow of the traffic, and as a longtime resident, that's the traffic, that's the way I've driven it for years, and it's not exactly, doesn't exactly state that. So again, we're for the project, we just think there needs to be some more consideration made for how everybody can be accommodated without anybody getting hurt here.
All right, so let me just ask a couple of other specific questions, see if we can come to some closure on the issue. Is the public right-of-way wide enough to accommodate any kind of turning lane?
It's very tight there, but let me say this, we'd be willing to work with Mr. Lannon to, try to figure out a way, maybe by giving up some right-of-way. We could find a way to put a little slip lane there. Another thing we could do that's been effective in other urban areas is to put a do not block pavement marking. That would protect your driveway, and people would stop before and after that. So we can certainly work with you.
I'd be more than happy to work with them. I have absolutely no problem. I'm hoping that there would be some way to work this through. The foundation, they may have some concerns. I was a little surprised I didn't see him here tonight, because, I mean, maybe this is just going to bring a lot more business to his property, so has nothing negative to say. But between the two properties, it's very tight, and I just think a little extra consideration now versus saying, oh boy, we should have thought about that back then, would be a grateful enhancement to the project.
Okay, well, thank you. Given this would effectively be an off-site improvement, it would probably need to be a condition of approval if it was to be something to be counted on. So maybe we can actually think about that before we get to that part of the meeting, and see if we can have a meeting of the minds on that. If not, then we don't. But do you have anything else, Mr. Lannon?
No, that's it. Like I said, we love the project.
Okay. Anyone else in the public have questions or comments?
Thank you.
Please come forward.
Good evening. Steve Pasco. I own 6 West Broadway, and parking area behind off Abbott Court, map 30, lot 25. I've got some questions. I love the project as well. I'm a big supporter of it. However, I do have some concerns I'd like to be addressed. First question was the entry through Merchants Row and the deletion of the parking there and possibly in front of the building. I believe that's going to have an adverse effect on my commercial tenants. But I'm just curious if they've done a study on how much traffic is really going to go through there. And then also, what is the turnaround area? He mentioned a turnaround for a fire truck in that street in Merchants Row.
Yep.
I'm trying to envision it turning in that area.
So maybe the engineer can address those comments and questions.
The turnaround in Merchants Row is just for passenger vehicles. It's for people who come down Merchants Row, they don't find a parking space, and they have to turn around. So we've blocked out a couple of the last parking spaces right up against the trail to allow people to make a turn and leave. There is no room for the fire truck. The fire truck, if it had to respond there, would have to back out. Merchants Row. You also had a question about amount of traffic.
Yeah.
We're showing through the study, which is based on a U.S. Census data journey to work for the residents. And of course, they're only coming in, they're not leaving. There would be 18 trips in the morning. And
is that 18?
18.
Okay.
And in the PM, there would be, 18 trips coming in from the left and 5 through movements across the top, but that's not really affecting Merchants Row. So 18 trips during the hour, that's less than 1 every 3 minutes. So, it's not a huge amount of traffic. And the parking is not something that we've proposed. It's something that came up at the highway safety meeting as making sure that people can see around the corner of your building with those parking spaces there, and it's not something that this planning board really has jurisdiction to allow or not allow. It's up to the town council as to on-street parking. And we are value neutral on this. We, if highway safety and Mr. Lutter feel that it's, better to do it that way, and the town council agrees, then, that's fine with us. And if they prefer to keep the parking, your parking, so to speak, that's certainly fine with us as well.
Well, yeah, to be clear, I don't think it's my parking. It's the town's parking. My tenants use it. The retaining wall that starts at the end of my building on Merchants Road, do you know who owns that retaining wall? Basically holds up the Merchants Row paving and
So I don't know, we don't know who as far as ownership of it is. We're not proposing any changes along there. So the site work related to the building construction, everything, we're not doing any work there, and then we're not proposing to change the edge of pavement or the guardrail on Merchants Row on that side.
okay. I believe that the 18 cars in and 18 cars out is unrealistic. Even if that were true, if fire trucks were coming down on occasion to the building, that wall, if anybody's ever paid attention or looked at it, it's a stone wall and it's in pretty bad condition. So we're talking about adding all that traffic up and back. And I think that consideration should be made to figure out if that wall's gonna hold. It doesn't look good without all that traffic. I believe that should be part of the plan to have an engineer, take a look at it and see what it's gonna need to hold, because you're talking about a lot more weight going back and forth. The plan, as you come down Abbott Court, so my parking's on the left there, and it looks from the plan, one of the colored plans that was on the screen, it looks like a curb's gonna be built, which would block part of access to my lot. So I'd like to, some clarification on that.
So on Abbott Court, within the development area, we have the sidewalk and the driveway coming up. The sidewalk would have a curb on that, but there's no curbing proposed on Abbott Court in front of your property.
Okay, can you put that colored diagram back up? One that was, I think it was the first one up in the beginning of your presentation. Oh, I don't see it.
How do I pull up the? Thank you. On the color plan, you see the dark gray, that's the proposed new pavement.
Yeah.
Coming down into the site, and then the lighter.
You gotta use the mic,
Use
please. You can grab that handheld one out of the stand if you want to just
That's
carry it
fine.
around.
The darker paved area coming in off of just to the right of where it says Abbott Court on that plan, that's the proposed new pavement, and then that lighter shaded gray that wraps around the side of it, that's a 5-foot sidewalk that would run along there, and the curbing is along the face of that sidewalk, but see outside the dark blue line that is the perimeter, that's the boundary of the property. There's no work proposed beyond that on Abbott Court.
Okay, so you're gonna run pavement up to an area past where my dumpster is. So
Yes.
how's my dumpster gonna get picked up? It's also not shown on the plan.
Is this the dumpster here?
That's possibly the dumpster right there, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
It says dumpster, yeah, that's not what I have
What
here.
page you on?
So you have dumpster on your plan,
So this was.
but this is the
where it
plan
was-
that I picked up today at the door. It doesn't have dumpster on there.
So this is the existing conditions plan that's in the site plan package that was prepared
Okay.
for the town by Promised Land Survey. And that's where they located the dumpster when they were out doing their field survey. So it's actually showing on the Abbott Court parking lot site now.
Okay. So if I relocate that onto the other side of the line,
Yeah.
and you put a curb in front of it, how do we pick it up?
Well, we can take a look at that as far as whether we terminate our sidewalk on our property before that, to allow the dump truck, I guess, if we can work with the town and we'll work with you on it, we can look at whether we take out the sidewalk and the curbing there and leave it flush in that area so that a dump truck comes into the site to access your site through the site driveway, I guess. No. Okay. All right, so we can take that up.
Well, there is an existing sidewalk along Abbott Court, right?
There is, yes.
And was that sort of intended to tie into that?
The intent was to try to provide pedestrian connectivity, but we could look maybe we can look at making it flush curb in that area to allow
Somebody to drive over it?
to drive over it, I guess, in that area if we have to.
Because it looks based on where the property line is, the way your dumpster is being serviced today is probably from the town's property. Now that it's being developed, that access may no longer be the same, but reasonable accommodation might indicate that the sidewalk could be, lowered to be flush with the pavement to allow someone to access your dumpster.
And that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for anything special here. I just want to make sure that I'm not going to be adversely affected. Okay, so that's that. Parking during construction, there's nothing that indicates how this site's going to be handled. Very concerned about access to my parking lot during and after, how that's going to be accommodated and where the fences are going to be. Because if they cut off and use Abbott Court for vehicle parking and whatever else they might need, then my tenants won't be able to access my rear lot. But there's nothing here there's nothing indicating, so I'm gonna ask the question so that I'm aware.
We're not proposing any change to access to the site and to Abbott Court during construction. Proposed construction entrance to the site is proposed coming up off of Central at the right-hand driveway entrance. That's going to be the primary construction entrance to the site.
Okay, fair enough. I would still urge the board to look into this wall situation. It definitely is going to need to be either redone or structurally tested before you think about driving all these vehicles past on Merchants Row.
Mr. LaRue, is that part of the town's roadway infrastructure? Do you know? Mike?
I'm not sure the extent of the right-of-way in that area. I'm not sure if it's to the curb typically or to the sidewalk curb with these tight spots like we are here with the granary. But we have to investigate that further.
So I suspect as your first question, who owns it would probably be the salient one to figure out who needs to maintain it. And it seems that we don't know that tonight.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm just going to have the site plans pulled up just for the board, just so we can, everybody can understand which wall. Oh, sorry. So we're just going to have the site plan package pulled up so that the board can understand which wall that is being referred to. So it's the beginning of the package, so it would be page, I want to say it's page 4 or 5 in the package. So, yes, so on that plan, so the wall,
Yeah, you see the gravel area?
Yep.
So it would be right along there.
Yeah.
At the back end of it.
Stone retaining.
where it says crushed stone, there's a stone retaining wall that comes off of the existing building and runs along that. I think that's the wall you're referring to, right?
Yeah, it basically holds back Merchants Row.
If you could zoom in on that retaining wall very tight, it appears that that wall is inside Mr. Pasco's property.
So that's, yeah, you can see there's where it says it.
Mm-hmm.
So right there, that one that, see, it says stone ret wall.
Okay.
Adjacent to there's a 26-inch poplar and a 40-inch poplar. So that's, I think that's the wall we're looking at, right?
Yes. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has comments or questions?
Good evening again, Tom Carden, 2 Cunningham Drive. How many parking places are going to be allowed for the tenants?
I think it's 1 per unit,
How many?
1 space per unit.
Okay, so 117 units, you're going to have 117 parking places?
That's
Yeah,
my
it just
understanding.
does not seem like anywhere near enough for the amount of people that could potentially be living there. I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be more than, 1 person per unit that's going to have a car. So where would they park? Would they continue parking in the regular parking lot, or? And what about when they have people over to visit? Where would they park?
There's 315 spaces in the garage, plus the 8 outside of the garage, so 323 proposed spaces. There's 66 existing spaces in the lot. So even if you allow 1 per unit, or even 1.5 per unit, as required by zoning, there's still over 100 spaces and close to 200 spaces available, which is almost tripling the existing inventory of spaces.
All right, good. So you have enough, but what happens when you start charging for parking places, which is going to be in, 7 years or 5 years? Huh? 12 years out. Oh, in 12 years out? Okay, so some of us might be around in 12 years, so it doesn't matter, I guess. And then it looks like from the plans that you're going to be closing some of the monitor wells, I think 4 of them. Is that because they just don't need to be monitored anymore, or?
So there are 4 monitoring wells that are actively still tested annually that are in this area. 3 of them are within Sawyer Court or within the project site. There's a 4th one that's off-site that's still monitored. If you're looking at the plan up on the screen, they're all in the lower right-hand corner. So
Yep.
all the other wells on the site, they've discontinued testing over the years because they no longer meet DES's minimum thresholds for testing. Those wells, every year when they've done the testing, you typically 2 out of the 4 have had hits on them, and it seems to alternate, and it's based off of the groundwater fluctuations out there. The proposal is that the monitoring wells would remain in place. So they have to build around them. So the caps would be extended to finished grade for access, and testing will go on until the DES determines that can be discontinued. And we're working with DES on it. And one of the things that they're doing relative to the site for construction purposes is that they're engaging a soil survey to be done to determine if there's any residuals that they're picking up in the soils throughout the whole site, so they can determine any type of actions that need to be taken during construction for it to make sure that everything is taken care of.
Okay, thank you. And last question is, where's the commercial development going to be? I don't think there's any in the main building, but is that going to be off to the side?
It's not part of this project.
What's that?
It's not part of this proposal right now.
It's not part of that project?
Not what's before the board now,
So
no.
there's no commercial in the plans?
That's not before the board this evening, just the parking garage and the residential structures.
Okay, this is just a parking garage. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have comments or questions?
Hello, my name is Cheryl Paradise. I'm the one who sent you the email, the crazy email. I came in last week and spoke to somebody in the planning board and come up to get paperwork to bring home to the family, because that house is owned by 3 of us, me, my sister, and my brother, on Sawyer Court. We've been there for 60 years. Now, we've had meetings with Beverly, I believe is her name, regarding your project, because it's right beside our house. That's our house and our pool right there. So we have concerns. Originally, we were told you'd be coming in between the 2 buildings, Abbott Court, and going straight into the garage. And Beverly explained not a lot of the traffic would be in front of Sawyer Court. They would mainly be entering out through the back. Now today, you're explaining that the main entrance to that property would be on Sawyer Court. Okay, now, when you come out my front porch, there's like 6 feet before you're at road. Now, as I stated, we have lived there for 60 years. That house was built, I believe it's 1858. We have a copy of our deed, which you can't even really figure out the way it was done in 1858, to be honest with you. I myself am on disability, and so is my brother. Unfortunately, both of us have breathing issues. So while all this construction is going on and our windows are open, we're gonna be breathing all this in, at least for the main part of it. You know, you're digging in the ground, the parking garage. That's one of my big concerns. I also have 2 little dogs that I walk. So coming out my door with all this, you know, we went from nothing, then you put a parking lot there, and it's okay. We have events on weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so we expect all the parking lot to be full on those days. Now we're talking every day of our life. Way back years, when that road really didn't exist to go all the way around my house, we own property in front of our garage, and we own property in front of our home. This was based on my father. Rest in peace, he's been gone over 10 years. He used to fight with you guys constantly in this town. So he allowed the town to build that roadway in front of our garage when Fred Fall Oil came in. Like I said, I was born and raised in that house. Also, so I know we own in front of the garage part, some of it. But unfortunately, me being on disability, my brother being on disability, we can't afford a surveyor to come out and look at our old deed and see what we actually own. We kind of had the same issue when the housing club did the property behind our house, and they put up a fence. We believe half of that fence is still on part of our property, but we couldn't fight it because we don't have the money. That's why we're still there. We can't afford to move somewhere else. And years back, we had a fire hydrant right in front of our house. Now, in front of our house, we parked 2 cars, flush with our garage, our porch. We've done this our whole life. Easy for me to bring my groceries in the house, everything in the house. There was a fire hydrant there, and then the cops started giving my dad's tickets. Parked too close to a fire hydrant. So he came to the town, disputed it. The town, mind you, put a big, huge white box around the fire hydrant that you couldn't park on that line. But it was still too close to a fire hydrant. So we did that for years. We always dug out the fire hydrant for snow removal and all that. Secondly, as years went on, they moved that fire hydrant way back in the backyard on the House Sand Club property. That's no longer there. My major concern is, where is our, are we gonna lose our 2 parking in front of our home when you have 2-lane traffic? I'm not understanding this at all.
All right, so
I'm really not.
let's actually try to get the engineers to answer questions one at a time, or we'll lose track of them.
Okay.
So the first one is, what about noise and dust and other things that might aggravate breathing issues? Is there any kind of dust control plan?
And noise, my sister works night shift.
Well, we can certainly work with you and insist that the contractor provide dust screening and minimize noise and dust. That's already regulated. You're not allowed to create dust on construction sites per NHDES anyway. So we will make sure that that doesn't happen with a noise and dust control plan.
I also want to point out that we have a pool in our
All right, so
backyard.
let me kind of steer this till we get all the questions answered, because
Well, the dust would affect our pool.
sure. If I understand you correctly, you have been utilizing on-street parking right in front of your porch on Sawyer Court, and your question is, now that it is a major access to this site, are you going to continue to be able to have on-street parking in front of your house? That's really a question, I guess, for the town.
Good.
Anyone want to take that?
I can take it from a traffic perspective. We assume that all traffic leaving the site would be going straight out of the lower level entrance, which is at the extreme south end of the project, and go straight out to Central Court there. There's really no reason for anyone to turn right onto Sawyer Court, then to turn left onto the projection of Sawyer Court at the north intersection with Central Street. So by and large, we expect all traffic to go out the south driveway,
Out the
not
back way?
out the back way, not in front of your house. And you can't go up Abbott Court anyway. It's one way. There are 8 parking spaces outside. That's so that the EV chargers can be located outside the building. So there may be the occasional trip to and from those EV chargers, but that would be all I would really expect on a regular basis going in front of our house.
I think what you're asking, if I can paraphrase, is really not related directly to this site plan. It's, will the town continue to allow on-street parking in front of her home as she has done for decades?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a matter for the planning board, but if someone here knows the answer, we'll get it for you.
Right, because as I stated in the deed, I believe that's why my dad could still park there with the fire hydrant, because we physically own half of our parking spaces.
Okay. So I guess the answer is, tonight, we don't know.
Right, well, that's why I'm just projecting these things, and when I had that meeting with the lady last Tuesday and asked for a printout of all that, she told me it was way too many pages. And to send a quick note to prepare you for some of our concerns, which most of these concerns were addressed with Beverly months ago when we were discussing whether we were staying or going.
Okay, so the dust, and then the on-street parking, what else were your concerns?
The chemicals for the pool because of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Breathing,
We're gonna, they're gonna mitigate the dust, so.
breathing issues. Donna, what am I forgetting? Come on. This is my older sister. I'm the baby in the house.
Okay.
He owns the property as well. State your name.
Hi, my name's, is this on?
Yeah, you gotta turn the little green light on, if it's not on.
Hi,
Yeah, you
my
go.
name's Donna Lato. I live at 3 Sawyer Court, that little box with the pool. That's our house.
Doesn't
Right
show
there?
our garage.
Yeah, so our garage is almost right on the roadway. They're saying that all the traffic flow is gonna be coming from the opposite side. So that was one of my concerns, was how we were gonna get in and out of our garage with all this traffic. But it looks like they'll be coming from the back side, more so where the Halcyon Club is, where that empty lot is that correct? Okay.
Well, given that they would wanna get to the garage entrance at that level, that probably makes
That's our
sense.
See, that's our house right there.
And that's our garage.
With, if you go to the garage, it's like almost right on the street. So that could create a concern if they're coming up around the corner. My father's always fought for a stop sign there, which the town's never given him, because people just fly around that corner. I don't know if that's a possibility, if we could get a stop sign before the corner. That may be helpful. And my concern was the water pressure. How's this going to affect the water pressure to our house? This shouldn't affect it, correct? Because it's town water? Is that correct?
It should have no effect. We're going to be looping the system. There's adequate pressure in that area of town.
Yeah, we have high pressure now. I was just wondering. And taxes. Do you know if this affects our taxes? Will our taxes go up or go down? Does the town know that? Do you know
Yeah,
at all?
certainly the planning board doesn't.
Okay.
Sorry.
And we had talked to Beverly way back when about all this, when we started. And she said that the people that are going to build this building, to be friendly with us, where we're so close to them, that they may be willing to put up a fence, a privacy fence, where we do have that pool. I don't know if that's something we deal with the town or with the builder. Would that be like something we'd want to bring up with the builder? Because I know the builder reached out to us to try to buy the house. It is a two-family house, but for $400,000 that they offered us, there's no way you can buy something, a two-family house for that amount.
All right, so if you're gonna ask for a fence to mitigate something, then we can discuss, abutter mitigations as part of the site plan, but you have to indicate what it is that you're asking the fence to screen.
What is that?
Why are you asking for the fence?
Privacy fence, out back, because of the pool.
Because there's now gonna be a whole bunch of people there that weren't there before.
Well, I don't know if the people will decide to walk around the area
We don't know
out
what the
back,
building's gonna look like, so it's hard to
Okay.
project.
or if they're gonna be mainly on the other side, like the rail trail.
I suspect there's
guys
not gonna be a
know?
lot of pedestrian traffic on the lower side in the parking lot, but we'll let the engineers address what their vision is.
Yeah, see, on your plan, that shows as Sawyer Court as well, not Abbott Court like that says. It shows Sawyer Court going around.
So we were concerned.
We were concerned,
With the
is this the front of the building in front of, none of it was making sense because it didn't identify it as Abbott Court.
That's all I have.
Another suggestion with the gentleman that was just talking about the flower shop. Right now, since you have that restaurant, I don't know the name of it, across from the flower shop in the old fire department, you put 2 parking spaces in front of that, which is very difficult coming out of Central Street, because you get the cars coming up the hill. So you might want to delete those 2 parking spaces altogether. I don't know if it's part of your plan, but it would just be a suggestion for me. Because we have a hard time now, let alone all these other cars coming out that way.
Okay.
That's all I have.
That's all I can think of at the moment.
If you would like to address some of those concerns?
If I might, Mr. Chairman, certainly, we were just looking at the plan. It makes all sorts of sense. And we will add to our plan for the city's engineering review, a stop sign at the corner of the T intersection there. It makes, I don't know how we missed it. It should be there. If it pleases the board and you want to make a fence along Abbott Court there a condition of the approval, we're fine with that. We'd be happy to do it.
Would there be any way to get our plan surveyed by our deed by the town?
I don't think so, no.
I wouldn't consider that.
We don't have a surveyor on staff.
No.
Okay, well, if we do choose to get our property surveyed, how do we identify it to you? If you're saying you can't park out front and we can't do this, then we have the right to fight for our property boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
I'm not
you
trying
know,
to be difficult. I'm
Surveyors
really
cost
not.
money, but if you engage a surveyor and you discover, for instance, that your property line is in the middle of Sawyer Court, then you might want to let someone in the town know that.
Hmm? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to clarify, Mr. Chairman, the existing conditions plan is a stamped plan from Promised Land Survey that was prepared actually for the town. And it does show the far side of Sawyer Court, you know, as depicted on this survey plan. The survey doesn't include the rest of the property, admittedly, but it does show where the property line is, essentially in what appears to be part of Sawyer Court pavement.
All right, so that is not unusual for a house built in the 1800s, and you know maybe the town will need to figure out what to do with these folks. And I don't think it's really a planning board issue, but it's obviously an issue for these residents. So yes.
Short and sweet. Thank you for your time. I'm Jeff Cameron, the president of the Halcyon Club, and we've been around a real long time. I do have a couple concerns to back Tom with the plant shop, and that intersection now is very busy. So you come out of Sawyer Court, our building's to the left, our land is to the left, but you take a right on Central, and then you go up to West Broadway. With all the additional cars, I was wondering what was going to happen at that intersection. There's a lot of people, residents, that want to know about that. And I also had a question about the construction vehicles coming in on Central Street, because Central Street's going to be backed up. It's backed up now. So I just want to see what their plan was and where that construction entrance was on Central Street. We own that vacant land, so we wanted to see if Abbott Court was going to be, they were going to widen it, and how much. So I just want to see if they're going to go on our property or not. I looked it over pretty extensively in the last 2 weeks. So those are my concerns and questions. I know, is there going to be another meeting, like a phase 2, that we're more a part of?
There are parcels that may at some point be developed, but it's not before us tonight.
Okay. Okay. So if he can answer the construction and entrance, and if there's any to back Tom in that plant shop in that intersection, it's bad now. The kids, I know there's bus stops there and there's crosswalks, and it's very busy. I don't even think a light would do it justice, but there's got to be some sort of plan, because that's, you know.
Well, I can answer the question in regard to construction access, that although a formal construction access and laydown plan hasn't been completed yet, I can assure this board that construction traffic would not be heading north up Central Street to Broadway. There's no reason to, when it can use Kendall Pond Road and Ford Way to have access to the site, which is much more appropriate to construction access.
And if they want to touch on that intersection, I mean, what you guys plan to do about it, or what they do, or are we too
I have
early
it
for
on
that?
my list of issues that have not yet been
Okay.
resolved, so we'll try to get an answer either, one way or the other before we do the approval.
Sure.
A couple of people have indicated that it might be appropriate to have a dedicated turning lane. I know that we have an unofficial dedicated turning lane coming east on West Broadway to Ford Way to go to the transfer station.
Mhm.
There's no lineage there, but people still line up with two lanes of cars, so.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, and the Abbott Court, was that going to be widened for a two-lane to go through there? Or is that going to still be a single one-way?
I think it's proposed to be one way, and
Just one way,
I don't know
okay,
if
I
there's
just
room
wanted
to
to-
do anything else.
Okay, perfect, that's what I wanted to know. But, yeah, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is George Fredette, and I'm speaking to you because I'm the immediate past chair of the Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate the job that you guys all have. I've seen some planning boards work before, and you have a lot of things to weigh, positive and negative. I just want you to consider, as you're looking at this plan, the positive impact that this will have on the businesses on Main Street. There's a win-win-win as I see it. There's 117 people in the total build-out that'll have another residential option. There'll be an additional parking spaces, which we know on Main Street, those can be used there. Even just showing up at the chamber office sometimes, it's a challenge to find some on-street parking there. And lastly, just the new activity that this will bring about would be a good thing for those businesses. You have a lot of things to weigh. Consider that when you're looking at this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Anyone remote? Okay, a motion by Churchill to close the public hearing, seconded by O'Connor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. I will recap for our consideration the issues that were brought up. First was elimination of trees and other plantings along the blank wall of a parking garage adjacent to the rail trail to allow for farmers marts and arts events and the like. Number two was dumpster access for 6 West Broadway. The suggestion was to lower the curb to allow trucks to go up over the sidewalk. Whether it's possible to have some sort of slip lane on Central at the intersection of West Broadway. The question of who owns the stone retaining wall behind 6 West Broadway, because apparently it needs some maintenance. And then there is a request for a privacy fence for the folks who live along Sawyer Court there around their pool. And then I never did get a question as to the paved area of Sawyer Court and the fact that their land apparently incurs into the paved surface. So we should probably get an answer for them on that. Does anyone else have other issues or comments? Yeah, Mr. O'Connor.
Sorry. This is for one of the engineers. You talked about the street light at Ford Way and West Broadway. The VHB report had talked about numerous accidents. I don't go down that way, but there's supposedly numerous accidents there. And basically, they made the determination that it's caused by the way the signalized system works. Throwing it out to you, you guys are the traffic experts. I don't know if Mr. LaRue knows who adjusts these things, but if they say you readjust the yellow light, you probably minimize the traffic and the backups.
Yes, we've actually talked to Mr. Litter about retiming that signal, and we came up with a new mitigation option. There's several options to timing there that may help. I would say, that Mr. Verostek in his review memo did point out that the impact of this particular project on that signal is very small. But nevertheless, the applicant is willing to pay for a retiming plan that we would work out with Mr. Litter and whatever form that may take. There's two options in the report, and we'd be happy to entertain, any reasonable option there.
Thank you.
I can add that we have discussed that at length in at least a couple meetings, and we have to balance out the peak periods with the unorthodox configuration of Madden Road and Ford Way. Because of the way that they're aligned, they both get green lights at the same time. If we start alternating that, part of the traffic plan is to alternate a green pass through for each street separately, which would cause further delays in the intersection, during peak periods. So we have to really think about this in more of a future projection with 4A, hopefully coming online at the same time as this. And also, it's something that we'll have to try to test out really once we have more information of future flows and changes in traffic flow based on different options for the travelers.
Well, thank you for the information.
If I could add to that, because it's come up a few times, the impact of 4A is going to be substantial on Broadway traffic, which would help at Central and would help at Ford Way. And the actual projected impact for that's in the traffic 4A, in the exit 4A traffic study, shows that there would be a 5,000 car per day reduction in traffic on West Broadway, and in the 400 to 500 range in the peak hour alone. So this project is adding something like maybe 40 to 50 trips in that direction, but there's a reduction due to 4A of 500 trips in the peak hour and 5,000 across the course of the day. So, there is light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, and traffic conditions throughout the West Broadway corridor are going to improve substantially.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Mr. Chase.
The only question I have is on the plan sets, your main entrance exit out Sawyer Court to Central Street. It doesn't show anything at Central Street. Your plan sets all stop just short of where the lower Sawyer Court comes onto Central Street. That's fairly narrow there. Are there any widening? That question never got answered from that gentleman. Is there going to be any widening there?
So there's nothing proposed at this time as far as the configuration coming out into that intersection with Central. We have had discussion with the town that one of the things we have to look at is when the phase 2, when that eventually comes online, whether there'll be adjustments to the alignment of that road and how that may have to be built in that area. But relative to this project, the decision was to leave it as is for now, and it'll be reviewed as part of that phase 2.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Let's see if we can get consensus on what might be conditions of approval from the board and the engineers and representatives of the town on the issue of no trees where we want to have the farmers market and other events. Is that acceptable to everyone? Anyone have objections? Not hearing anything? Okay, so we can make that a condition. Lowering the sidewalk for access to the dumpster at 6 West Broadway, is anyone have a problem with that? Not hearing that, we can make that a condition. As to who owns the stone retaining wall, that sounds like a research project. I don't think we can figure that out tonight. And the pool privacy fence, is the applicant willing to entertain that for their abutters? Okay. And I don't know whether this is really a planning board issue or not, but it has been identified that the property of those abutters apparently goes well into the paved area of Sawyer Court. Is that something that we need to do something about?
So part of the proposal for that portion of Sawyer Court running along the frontage between both of those lots is to pull the pavement outside of the limits of the surveyed boundary there. So the pavement's pulled just outside on the proposed plan, outside the limits of their property. So we're trying to shift it off of their land. And coming around the corner as well, the radii of the road was done to pull it off of the corner of their property as well.
Okay, then that's been solved. Anyone else have issues, ideas, or conditions of approval?
Yeah, I guess I'm not really in favor of making the fence a condition. I don't think that should be on the applicant, but, I mean, I'm just one member of the board, but I find that to be on the homeowner of that property. If they want a fence, that they should put up a fence. I don't think it should be a condition for the applicant, but just throwing it out there.
Okay, anyone else concur with that?
I'll just chime in on that. I mean, I would agree with you. The only thing is the applicant said he would be willing to do it as a good neighbor, so I kind of took it that as, he wants to be a good neighbor. So, I mean, to be honest, I don't know how much of a privacy fence is really going to do with a building that's that tall.
Well, there is that.
Maybe the first floor ain't going to see anything, but the building's pretty high, so, but like I said, the developer's willing to do it. I mean, that's fine.
Overjoyed that you want to remove it, we'll do it anyway, so it won't matter. I mean, during construction, I think is probably more important than once the buildings are up and everything's landscaped and pretty, given that there's dust concerns and these people have health issues. We'll be happy to get the fence up.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I bring it up because I've learned through my legal seminars that whatever the applicant or developer promises during the meeting, it has to be a condition of approval or it probably won't happen, so. All right, are we ready to move on?
I apologize, I just thought of it now. That space where you were talking about taking the trees out, possibly using that for food trucks and whatnot, I noticed on the lighting plan, and the lighting's basically internal. Is that something that you'd want to, for just that spot, light that spot up, or?
Well, I'm not necessarily going to assume what would happen, but I'm not thinking necessarily food trucks. I'm thinking more of, farmers markets and arts sales and little, pop-up concerts. And I'm guessing a lot of that would happen during the daytime when there's, people using the rail trail for recreation.
Okay.
If at some point it grows and there's a need to have some lighting out there, I guess we can address that at a future point. But let's just see how that evolves. Mr. Chase?
The only one that we missed that I can see, Mr. Chair, is coordination between the owners of 14 West Broadway and the applicant to alleviate the traffic concerns, the traffic backups to their upper entrance?
All right, so I guess what I heard was that the belief is that the impact of 4A will actually cure that.
Right. I just want to make sure that as with, same thing with the fence, the applicant said that they were willing to
Well,
confer with the owners of 14 as to ideas on how to alleviate that issue.
Well, it's a public street, so if we're going to contemplate creating a dedicated turning lane, that probably needs to be something that's on the plan. And
I wasn't even talking about that. I mean, they threw some different ideas, and I just want to make sure that they're...
Okay, I didn't hear any other concrete ideas, so that's the one I ran with. Were there other suggestions specifically?
Yeah, painting it, such as on Ashley Drive. It's blocked out, do not stop here, so that they can get into the businesses
yes.
on Ashley Drive.
I did hear
They
that.
brought that idea up.
And that's a reasonable idea, because I
Yeah.
actually obey those. I don't park, I don't stop in
Most
the
do.
queue
Yeah.
in those do not block areas, so maybe that's a viable solution.
Yeah. So, and it would all have to be brought before town engineering and such, so that there'd have to be, you know, three-way communication there. I just want to make sure that they're not left out.
Okay, so maybe that seems like a fairly low impact solution.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, are we ready for motions?
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-63C1 to allow 8.5 by 18-foot parking stalls where 9 by 20-foot stalls are required. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations. I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-64C2C to allow a 5-foot residential buffer along the south side of the project abutting parcel 30012, where 20 feet is required. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that strict conformity to the regulations would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations. I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-64B to allow 5 trees for the building perimeter where 31 are required. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations. I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-64B to not provide 25% of trees and shrubs planted within curbed raised landscapes, islands situated within the parking areas. Okay.
And is that it?
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion on all of those waivers from Mr. Healy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Churchill. Any discussion? Poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Pelletier?
Yes.
Mr. Churchill?
Yes.
Mr. Wood? Oh, it's getting late. Yes, and the chair votes yes. Before we leave waivers, would you briefly recap for us your understanding of all of the comments from VHB? There was one in there about, roadway slopes that might require a waiver, so I just wanted to make sure that you're either going to comply with all of their comments, or if there are more waivers, you ask for them.
No, going through the comments, it's internal parking drives. Part of it was related to the one accessible space that we added in for the EV charging area. And the slope just needs to be adjusted to make sure we have 2% maximum cross slope in that area. We can make that adjustment on the plans. It wouldn't require a waiver for that. And going through the other comments in the list, understanding this was VHB's first look at it as well. And we've had quite a few revisions that we were doing pretty quickly to get everything in through the TRC meetings and everything. A lot of the items that they picked up were it's more cleanup on the plans, a lot of notation to add, and layer management.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
If I could make a comment before we
Mr. Chase.
continue, Mr. Chair. I had scanned through the architectural drawings, and they look very good, although I really think, instead of the gray brick mix, I think granite would look much better there.
Oh, Mr. Ganese, you heard that? Granite. Yes.
wanted to ask one question. There's a comment, was in your section about escrow as required to complete the project. Can you explain what that is? Because I'm concerned it means the whole garage, which would be a $24 million escrow.
So typically we request construction escrow for site plan projects. That would be, the amount to be established would be coordinated with the Public Works Department, and I think that's still an item that we're working out internally as to how that will work. But normally we have the construction escrow. It's either a letter of credit, cash, or a performance bond, and we hold it for the.
Oh, cash, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But is
We
that
love cash.
typically the work that's involved in the public right-of-way, or is that for
It is
the
any
private section of the
any
project too?
related to the groundwork. So so gravels,
Right.
drainage,
Yeah,
you know, the
utilities.
structures.
Okay.
I would assume that since it's a public-private partnership and the town is actually the ultimate owner and developer of the parking garage, that you would not require the private partner to escrow for that, and if the town fails to do something, the town has deep pockets.
Well, we talked about the private entity part of it with the apartments would still need some sort of escrow. The public parking section area, the parking lot itself, we wouldn't escrow that anyway. But related to accessory work with utilities, water service, sewer service, it's not 24 million.
Okay, great.
I could say it's below $1 million easily.
Okay. The way you're saying it is the way I was hoping.
Yes.
And I just wasn't sure the way it was written.
Yeah, well,
So,
wise to get that clarified.
yeah.
Thank you.
And also, just as a thank you, we work in an awful lot of communities in southern New Hampshire, and your staff especially, but your consultants too. Everybody gets back to us very quickly. And so, even though it seems like it's taking forever to get going on this, when we do get going, things happen very quickly, and I just want to make sure to say thank you and recognize everybody.
Thank you. All right, on the architectural design regs.
Mr. Chair, I move to find pursuant to LDCR 170-85 that the application as presented demonstrates substantial compliance with the architectural design regulations. This property is located in the traditional business overlay district and meets a high level of compliance as outlined in section 170-84.
Second.
Moved by Healy, seconded by Chiricello. I'll pull the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Pelletier?
Yes.
Mr. Chiricello?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. On findings of fact?
Chair, the board finds that the proposed plan provides safe and efficient vehicular and pedestrian access in the design and construction of the accessways and walkways. In the design and construction of the roadway is adequate to accommodate the anticipated volume of traffic proposed by the development. The board finds the proposed parking plan is adequate for the site and meets the parking density requirements for the use. The board finds that the landscape plan meets the intent of the regulations, or a waiver has been granted where the regulation could not be met. The board finds the stormwater management as proposed is designed to control the post-development runoff so that it does not exceed pre-development runoff. The board finds the utility construction standards are met and the property has a sufficient number of hydrants for the proposed use. The board finds exterior lighting, solid waste storage, and snow storage provisions and erosion and sediment control provisions are adequate. The board finds the proposed height of the building is not excessive, meets the intent of the district, and maintains the character of the district, and does not exceed the regulatory requirement. I move to agree with the above noted findings of facts.
I'll second it.
All right, so moved by Healy, seconded by O'Connor. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Pelletier?
Yes.
Mr. Chiricello?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve pursuant to, after review and deliberation of the mixed-use site plan application for the town of Derry in Lansing Melbourne Group, 5 Abbott Court, 3 Central Court, and 1 Central Court. The board finds the applicant has satisfied the general requirements of the TBOD district in the land development control regulations, or in cases where the regulation cannot be met, has satisfied the waiver requirements and obtained the appropriate variances. Therefore, the motion is to approve pursuant to RSA 676:4, Roman numeral 1, completed application with the following conditions. Precedent, comply with the VHB review letter. Precedent, subject to owner's signature. Precedent, address DPW comments contained in memo MM25-111 from Mark LaRue. Subsequent, a voluntary merger of the 3 lots will need to be submitted, reviewed by the planning board and recorded. Subsequent, subject to an on-site inspection by the town's engineer. Precedent, establish escrow for the setting of bounds or certify that bounds have been set. Precedent, establish appropriate escrow as required to complete the project. Precedent, note approved waivers on the plan. Precedent, obtain written approval from the planning director designee that the GIS submission is received and is operable and complies with LDCR Section 170-61.c. Precedent, subject to receipt of applicable state or local permits relating to the project. Subsequent, acceptance and recording of any required easements, new or amended construction, drainage, utility. Precedent, conditions precedent shall be met within 6 months. Subsequent, the town of Derry and LMG will coordinate temporary parking for the existing parking to be displaced during construction of this project. Subsequent, submission of a soils management plan to planning and DPW. Subsequent, submission of a groundwater management plan to planning and DPW. Subsequent, any proposed signage not shown on the plan submitted this evening shall have administrative review by the planning board per the sign regulations for the district. Precedent, ensure all plan sheets reflect the final parking space count.
And I'll add some more we talked about this evening. Subsequent, elimination of trees and other plantings on the north side of the parking structure adjacent to the rail trail. Provide a lowering of the sidewalk for vehicular access to the dumpster for 6th West Broadway, also subsequent. What's that? Oh, yeah, we might as well put that in. Subsequent, a pool privacy fence for the abutter as discussed this evening. I have a question, however. There is a precedent established escrow for setting of bounds, but subsequent, we are submitting a lot merger, so isn't that sort of out of order?
If bounds need to be reset as part of the plan, it would be included in the escrow.
Okay, very good. So I think that's it. Anyone else need anything else? So we have a motion by Mr. Healy,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Any discussion? Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Mr. Pelletier?
Yes.
Mr. Chiricello?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. You have a bunch of other recommendations, Ms. Robideau. Is there anything else we need to talk about, or are we set?
If you feel that they should be mentioned, we can mention them. They're not conditions of approval, but they're just there would be items that would follow the project, like once the project's done, things that the town might want to look at, but we can hold off on those.
Yeah, why don't we let that be a discussion with the council at some point?
Okay.
Because it's not really part of the approval.
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, thank you all, because this has been a long journey and a vision for many, so. All right, if I still have an agenda here. Board member comments?
Thank you all for your hard
Thank
work.
you. Thank you.
Any board member comments? No, I will fish for a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Chercello to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.